It's another very exciting it's another very exciting Friday afternoon on independent television and radio here in Benin City. A very wet Friday at that. I guess it must be raining where you are now. The program is Hitches and Voices, brought to you by Network for the Advancement of People with Visible Disability, NAVID. NAVID is a non-governmental organization here in Nigeria, Benin City, that is advancing the rights of persons with disability. I have a very wonderful guest with me in the program, in the studio today. If you've been following us on this program, our topic has centered around getting children with disability to school. It's the Get Your Child to School Disability, Not a Barrier. And today our focus will be on deaf education. Deaf education. Deaf community is a cluster of disability that many people are usually fascinated about. How do they communicate? How do they go about what they do? Today we'll be unveiling all that on this program today, and I have my wonderful guest, like I said earlier. With me in the studio is Cynthia Godwin Aya, a special education teacher with Yogbe College and a regular face on this program. She's flipping side today. She's usually our sign language interpreter, but today she's a guest. Madam Cynthia, welcome to Hitches and Voices.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kingsley. Good afternoon, viewers and listeners at home. Thank you for having me.
All right, I also have Abimbola Eromusele. She is also a deaf teacher with the special school in Yogbe College. Madam Bimbo, welcome to Hitches and Voices. And our sign language interpreter for today is Constance Olayinka Davis. She'll be doing justice to sign language on the program today. So this is how I'd like to welcome you to Hitches and Voices. My name is Kingsley Okoje, your regular anchor on the program today. So let's delve into our topic proper as we focus on deaf education. Like I said in my intro, the deaf community is a large community here in Edo State. And one of the big challenges that they face is the issue of communication. Most times people think every deaf person can sign, every deaf person can communicate in sign language. But I don't think that's the case. But it's not for me to say. I have the experts with me in the studio today. So I'll start with Madam Cynthia. Can every deaf person sign?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley, for that question. Not every deaf person can sign, but every deaf person can demonstrate. Every deaf person can make gestures, but not every deaf person can sign. And also, not every deaf person can understand sign language as well.
All right, beautiful. So let me put this question to Madam Bimbo. How important is it for a deaf person to understand sign language as a means of communication?
So it's very important. For example, in the area of education, deaf children, when they go to school to learn, they learn sign language. It is their only means of communication. And that's how we learn to communicate.
All right, fantastic. Is the Get Your Child to School campaign, let's call it a campaign, Disability Not a Barrier. We've been on that on this program. I would like to ask, what exactly is the major challenge that deaf persons are faced with in terms of bringing them out, getting them enrolled in school? I know as persons with disability, we face similar challenges, but what would be unique with the deaf community? I'd like Madam Cynthia to answer this question.
Okay. One of the biggest challenges that persons with deafness face in bringing them out for school enrollment, first is age. Some of them, after acquiring formal education in a regular school, that is when their parents or their world will now begin to look for schools. Some of them, at that age, they are already bigger than their peers in the class. So it's a major challenge, but it is also not a barrier. Secondly, distance is another challenge, why you have some of them not wanting to come out to enroll are in the formal school setting because many of them don't have access to a special school around their environment, around where they live. That is another challenge. And also ignorance, like some parents will tell you they are not aware that there is a special school for persons with deafness. They are not aware that they can even go to school. They are not aware that they can write. So they look for alternative means of maybe choosing a vocation or another career path. But those are some of the challenges. However, they are just challenges, like we have said, they are not barriers. So they
Beautiful.
can always be overcome.
They are challenges, not barrier. To Madam Bimbo, how important is education for a deaf child?
Education for a deaf child is very important. First of all, awareness is important. We need more awareness on TV, on social medias, on different places, so that people will be aware that there is a deaf school. We have deaf schools right now in those states, about 5. We have special school, we have in Yobe College, we have in IC First East, and then we have in we have physically challenged school at Aduawa. We have a special school for physically challenged also at Auchi, Afuze, and then Urumi. We have in these places. Now, if we do not have proper awareness, most people will not know that these schools are in their environment, and so they need to be informed, because education is very important for a deaf child. It is all they require, it is all they need. Our challenge is not a barrier for us. It doesn't stop us from going to school. Even though our age is big, we can still go to school and learn. Education is for everybody. It is the right of every child.
I like that. It is the
And
right
also,
of every,
to quickly add, helping a deaf child with things like scholarship and aids to make that deaf child have access to education is very important. That will also encourage them to go to school, because parents are usually discouraged when sending their deaf child to school because of distance and other challenges.
I like the part where she said that education is a right for every child. But let's look at the deaf child once more. What's the advantage or advantages of enrolling a deaf child in school early enough? Madam Cynthia.
Wow, Sister Kingsley, that question is like saying all the advantage between life and death. Enrolling a deaf child early enough in school is a way to having a successful education early enough. If you have a deaf child enrolled in a school early enough, that child is able to acquire communication, which at that age is already a gap in the home. We all agree that we start talking to our children, we start listening to our children, we start talking to our children while they are in the womb. We start listening to them when they are born, making different kinds of sound and gestures. But for a deaf child, there is already a communication gap, especially for those who have congenital deafness. That is, they were born with this challenge. So the nearest alternative is school, special school, where you can enroll these children for them to now begin life early enough. The challenge is already there. But what is the way forward? What can be done to assist these children? What can be done to assist this child to fill this gap that is already created in the home, which we all know as the first school? But for a deaf child, the home is not able to play that part of being the first school. And also not keeping the child, not enrolling the child also early enough becomes a double problem. Becomes a double problem for the child. The child is not able to express, the child is able to express his or herself, but people around they are not understanding. And if you are talking, the child is also looking, the child, it's frustrating, and it will be something like creating another personality for that child. That's why some persons will say deaf persons are usually very aggressive. That's the case of when they are trying to communicate, you don't understand them, and then when you are also talking, they don't understand, so there is a gap.
Can be frustrating, yes.
Very, very frustrating. So in order to fill that gap, it's usually encouraged that you send the child to school early enough so that whatever it is, the processes can begin. That child can begin to learn sign language, which is a major means, an easier means of communication for them, other than using other means of communication like gestures. In the process, they are expressing so much emotions, anger, and frustration. So enrolling the child early enough in school is just like putting the child on the right path of life early enough. Thank you.
Fantastic. Putting the right child to school early enough to set the child on the right path of life. But we're in an era where assistive technology is aiding the learning of persons with disability. So I would like to know from Bimbo's experience, how is it helping the deaf? How is it aiding their learning?
Okay, I've experienced this before, talking about going to school early quickly, and then also, like for me, I even had to go learn from the church as well, just to add that there. Okay, so for technology, let's say the use of phone, for example, we have ASL videos that can help a deaf child at home, even before starting school, to understand and learn the basics of ASL before getting into school. Also,
so ASL will mean American Sign Language, right?
Yes, ASL meaning American. Yes, that's it. Also, we need to partner with different disabilities organizations and then medical associations and all, so that when a child is born at 6 months, that child is being tested, and if it's discovered that that child is deaf, you either introduce the use of hearing aids, cochlear implants, or the second option is send the child, the parents, to a place where they can learn sign language at that early age, so that the child can get his or her language early before being introduced into formal settings. The use of technology can also help in this way, because a child who is left dormant without learning any form of communication or language finds it difficult to cope when they are in the formal settings, even with assistive devices. Then using of technologies have helped a lot of children that I know, and mostly the phone, using of the phones, that's what I can say.
All right, there's this notion that deaf people do not go very far in terms of education. Sometimes they argue that a lot of them stop at the secondary level. Is this assumption, is it true, Madam Cynthia, judging from your experience?
People said it's a lie. She said it's a lie. She said no, that's
so
not
how
true.
far can the deaf go?
Deaf, okay, wait, Madam Cynthia.
Okay, like we have Mrs. Bimbo with us today. Does she look like someone that did not go far in terms of education? No. Last 2 weeks, we had Deaf Teachers Association conference, and some of our keynote speakers were persons with deafness. We had persons with deafness who had attained a very height of education. I met 2 PhD holders in that conference, and they are both hearing impaired. One of the keynote speakers, one of the best keynote speakers, was a hearing impaired person, and I was marveled. So it's a wrong notion, and it's not true. Deaf persons can become a professor. The highest level of education a deaf person can attain it if put in the right environment, if exposed to education early enough.
All right, if exposed to education early enough, a deaf person can attain the highest height in education. The program is still Hitches and Voices on independent television and radio. Don't forget, we are broadcasting live on television and radio as well. We'll go on a short break now, and we'll come back and continue our conversation. Welcome back from that break. The conversation is deaf education, prospects, and challenges. And from what our guests in the studio have been saying, you can see, or from what they've said, that it is very instructive, very important to get that deaf child early enough to school so that that child can benefit from learning and from the environment. But it's unfortunate that we still have many deaf children who do not have access to education, like our guest said, as a result of distance and some other challenges. But I would also want to, make our guests in the city expand more on these challenges. Let's focus a little bit on, in Edo State here, where you currently work as special teachers. Government is listening to this program right now. They are watching. In terms of deaf education, Bimbo, what would you suggest that the government should do to enable more parents enroll their children in school and make education for the deaf more inclusive and more accessible?
Okay, like I said before, awareness campaign is very, very important on all forms of medias so that the deaf can benefit. That's number one. And it should be done in sign language so that the deaf can understand and benefit as well. That's number two. Provide transportation accessibility, a bus to go to school. That also will help because of the distance from where the deaf people are coming from. And number three, this one is quite important because there's only one secondary school for the deaf in the whole of Edo State. Provide hostel so that those in the rural areas can come down to town and stay in the hostel and attend school. Like when many persons in primary school, when they are done, they forget about secondary school because of the distance. Those who live in the rural areas, in the villages, they can't come here to stay. Where would they stay? And some of them who their parents sacrifice for them to come to school. So them spend as much as 3,000 naira daily just for transportation. You can imagine that, along with other expenses. So this actually reduces the passion for these children and also for the parents to send their children with disabilities to school.
All right, so that let me quickly say this. So that there are government officials watching, they can learn from what is happening from other states. Can you give us a model of deaf education in other states that is working effectively and that is making education more accessible and more inclusive for deaf persons? Give us that example.
Okay, all right. We have in different states. Let's, for example, we're using Ekiti, Ondo. They always have hostels in their special schools there. They give them scholarships for all of them. Special education for special children is free over there. So children even from this state travel down to the west to acquire education. But in Edo State here, we don't have that. We have 18 local governments in Edo State, but only 5 special schools and only 1 secondary school. The other 13 local governments, what happened to them? They don't have a special school. So they have to come down to another local government to attend school. So how will they do that? Where will they stay? So this is a major problem. That's why we are begging the government to provide transportation, provide hostels for those who want to go to school so that they can acquire education. This is very important. He said education is a right for all, but this is not true. It is not true where a deaf person is concerned. For a regular person, yes, but for a deaf person, no. Education is not actually like a right for us because we're not seeing it. What is important is we need to advocate. We need to create more awareness so that people will be aware about these challenges, and also parents can bring their children to school early.
All right.
But while we're advocating for that, we need the schools to be in place for them to go to.
Beautiful. Madam Cynthia, very quickly, apart from hostel and having the means of transportation to school, what other facilities do you think can aid the learning of persons with hearing impairment in schools? We talked of technology not quite long ago.
Yes, you have just mentioned it again. Assistive technology can play a major role in teaching learners with deafness. They help them to learn faster, because you can't just bring abstract knowledge to someone who does not hear, even though the person understands sign language.
So what do you need in Iyogbe College right now?
Wow, we need a lot of things when it comes to assistive technology. We need computers, we need projectors, we need constant supply of electricity so that we can use these gadgets. We need real objects. We need real objects,
all right,
like a map and so many other things. And just to add to assistive technology, one of the prospects that we look forward in deaf education is to have a system where everyone can sign, because that is what inclusive education would mean for a deaf person. Parents, teachers, regular teachers, and other stakeholders in education should learn how to sign. So sign language should be a subject in our curriculum and in our schools.
Sign language should be a subject in our curriculum, in our schools, from the primary to the tertiary level, so that every one of us can communicate with a deaf friend and with the deaf community. And it is a call to the Edo State government. There are states whose model for special education is working. We can copy from this state. We are aware that our governor, is doing well. We want to believe that he has the interest of the disability community at heart. And like we've said in previous editions, special education in Edo State, it's in a very dicey situation right now. It needs rescue, and we are calling on government to do so. And if you are parents out there, your child with hearing impairment has a very good chance of becoming something in life, if only you give him access to education. So bring that word out, bring that deaf child out, get that child enrolled in school, and watch that child blossom. That's a wrap on our program today, Hitches and Voices. Do well to join us, same station next week. Till then, spot the hitch and be a voice. My name is Kingsley Okoje, saying goodbye.